Thanks for inviting me to give this presentation, and specifically on this topic, which is so close to my heart and to my actions. When we are talking about clean air, it's both clean outdoor air and indoor air. One doesn't exist without the other. So I'll be talking about both, starting with, with air quality in general. In 2021, WHO announced the next air quality guidelines. I was privileged to be a co-chair of this activity. Two important points. First of all, that the concentration levels recommended are much lower than before, really close to the background levels. And also, as it is stressed in the document, it applies to both indoor and outdoor air. So with this lowered concentration, really, we cannot go much lower. So basically, in 10 years' time, we won't have significantly different WHO guidelines. But then we can ask, all right, so what's the reality? And if we look at this table, these are the cleanest nations as compiled in that presentation, in that paper in 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. Now, what you can see that all of them, the cleanest, are still above 5 micrograms per cubic meter, which is the annual PM2.5 concentration. So this is not that good, but the good news is that now, doing the analysis which we do, we can see that the trend is pointing down, which means concentrations are reducing, and this is due to the many control actions. But particulate matter is only one aspect of air quality. So what's the overall situation? Well, we can ask, what is the situation in relation to Sustainable Development Goals? Is there one for clean air? No, there's not one for clean air, but there's one for affordable and clean energy. Now, in relation to clean energy, we know very well what the situation is. The use of dirty energy, fossil fuels, is still increasing, and the contribution for clean energies is still very minor. And with this, of course, CO2 in the atmosphere is also increasing. And we know very well what it means. The last edition of the Climate Change Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change showed it very clearly where we are going. Humanity has opened the gates to hell. This was the statement by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres just very recently. Well, the gates to hell. But we have a dream, and that dream was expressed a few years ago at the first WHO Global Conference on Air Pollution and Health in Geneva by Dr. Tedros, the Director General. Now, our dream is a world free of air pollution, reduction of the number of deaths from air pollution by 2/3 by 2030. Well, is it possible? How this can be achieved? Well, it's a very clear message, and we know what needs to be done. Air pollution must be terminated through the transition to clean energy. Now, you may ask why this word terminated. There are, of course, other terms used. The big terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was part of this conference, and that was the wording adopted from this. So just closing this vision for in 10 years' time, at another conference, Antonio Guterres said this: Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. So really, in 10 years' time, I hope that will be much better progress in terms of clean outdoor air and clean energies. But there's, of course, clean air. There was an event, very important event, at the end of March 2023 in Canberra, Clean Air Forum. Really, it was Clean Indoor Air Forum. I think we were a bit shy to state that indoor, and you can see the many people participated. This was really amazing. In our paper 2 years ago, we argued for a paradigm shift to combat indoor respiratory infections and stressing the building ventilation systems must get much better. So building ventilation systems, but really we are talking about much more than just ventilation system. That's one aspect. All air risks indoors must be considered. And the picture is, of course, quite complex because it is a complex system. So we started from airborne infection mitigation of this, but there's also the outdoor air, and outdoor air penetrating indoors is a huge part of indoor air pollution. Anything we generate indoors, dampness and mold, for which we create perfect conditions sometimes, and making sure that thermal comfort is good. And this must be taken into account at the time of building design, HVAC system design through building operation, and taking into account energy conservation. Now, how this can happen? Without air quality standards, it would be very difficult to do it. For outdoor air, we have both emission standards and air quality standards. Over 200 air monitoring stations are across Australia. But for indoor air, we have only national construction codes, no performance standards. One could say in relation to outdoor air, since all sources in principle comply with emission standards, why do we measure air quality standards outdoors? Because without this, we don't really know what's happening. And really, indoors, we must do the same. At the end of last year, with colleagues, we've published this paper in the Medical Journal of Australia, Health Indoor Air is Our Fundamental Need, the time to act is now. This was an extended message from my article in the conversation a little bit earlier, and in my letter to the then Federal Minister for Health. It may sound like a call to arms, but really this paper was a blueprint for indoor air regulatory framework. So how to do it? It was part of the framework. We are working on the rest of the framework because indoor air standards will be very different to outdoor air standards in the ability to do the monitoring. So I was very pleased when during the recent parliamentary inquiry into long COVID, when I was asked to speak, and after this report was generated, this part of this blueprint was included. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen immediately, but we are going there. So I'd say that the vision for indoor air quality for the future. Indoor air quality standards will prescribe concentrations of indoor air selected pollutants, parameters, ventilation is one of them, and be enforceable, which means monitored in every indoor public space. Ventilation as part of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system will be an element in the enforcement of indoor air quality, and buildings will be designed to meet the standards. Well, the best way to shape the future is to predict the future, is to create it. And this is what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lidia. Very informative, and I'm sure we would all agree that that we need to take some steps to create that future rather than allow it to creep up on us.